Graham Parsons and George, John. Yeah, I mean, what the hell am I doing here? You know?
Keith Richards. The name alone screams rock and roll rebellion. For over 6 decades, the Rolling Stones guitarist has been music's most brutally honest voice. He never held back his opinions, and boy, did he have opinions about other bands. While most musicians play it safe with fake smiles and diplomatic answers, Keith? He said exactly what he thought.
Legends.
Bowie, Prince.
Natural attrition.
Natural.
No filter. No apologies. And that attitude created some legendary feuds that rocked the music world. From chart-topping legends to punk revolutionaries, nobody was safe from Keith's sharp tongue. He reportedly trashed bands in interviews, allegedly started backstage drama, and sources claim he burned bridges everywhere he went. Today, we're counting down the top 10 bands that Keith Richards allegedly hated the most. These aren't just small disagreements, these are full-blown rivalries that defined rock history. Let's dive into the drama. 10. The Beatles. Coming in at number 10, we have the Beatles. Yes, you heard that right. Keith Richards allegedly had serious beef with the Fab Four, despite both bands leading the British invasion together.
We got Paul and Ringo. Paul was a songwriter par excellence. Ringo, what a guy.
Sources claim Keith felt overshadowed by the Beatles' squeaky clean image in the early days. While the Stones were the bad boys, the Beatles got all the mainstream love. Reportedly, Keith called their music too polished and lacking raw edge. Insiders allege that Keith once said the Beatles were more about haircuts than real rock and roll. The tension supposedly peaked during the 1960s when both bands competed for the #1 spot on charts worldwide. Behind the scenes, sources claimed there was always awkward energy at industry events. Keith allegedly felt the Beatles represented everything fake about the music business, while the Stones kept it real and dangerous. Though they maintained public respect, the rivalry reportedly never fully disappeared. Keith's comments over the years suggested he never quite forgave their massive success. 9. Oasis. At number 9, we have Oasis, the Britpop giants who apparently rubbed Keith Richards the wrong way. This wasn't just a small disagreement. Sources claim Keith absolutely despised what Oasis represented in the 1990s music scene. Keith reportedly called Oasis Beatles copycat wannabes in multiple interviews.
Necessarily the people that play on the shows, although some of them I have doubts about too, but also some of the people that set them up.
He allegedly said they brought nothing new to rock music and just recycled old ideas. The Gallagher brothers, never ones to stay quiet, reportedly fired back with their own insults.
Keith Richards looking exactly as you would imagine, like a scarf and a hat. His son, his friend of mine, Marlon, said, "Dad, it's not." He turned around and he went, "You're still around, are you?"
Rumor has it that Keith once walked out of an awards show when Oasis was performing. Witnesses claimed he muttered something about real music being dead as he left the venue. The disrespect was allegedly mutual and very public. Industry insiders said Keith believed Oasis got famous too easily without paying their dues. He supposedly told friends that bands like Oasis were killing authentic rock and roll with their attitude and overproduced sound. The feud became legendary in British rock history, with both sides never backing down. 8. Metallica. Number 8 brings us Metallica, and allegedly, Keith Richards had zero respect for the metal legends. Sources claim Keith thought heavy metal was just noise without soul, and Metallica bore the brunt of his criticism. Keith reportedly said in interviews that Metallica's music lacked the blues foundation that real rock needed. He allegedly called their sound angry for no reason, and dismissed thrash metal as a passing trend that wouldn't last. Rumors suggest that at a major festival, Keith refused to share backstage space with Metallica members. Witnesses claimed he made sarcastic comments about their all-black outfits and called them Halloween rockers behind their backs. Industry sources said Keith believed Metallica represented everything wrong with modern music. He allegedly told journalists that loud guitars and screaming didn't equal talent or musicianship. Metallica fans reportedly flooded Keith with hate messages after his comments went public. But Keith? He allegedly didn't care one bit and stood by every word. 7. Black Sabbath. At lucky number 7, we have Black Sabbath.
Poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah.
The godfathers of heavy metal. Keith Richards allegedly couldn't stand their dark, doom-filled approach to rock music. Sources claim Keith called Black Sabbath's music depressing garbage that had no place in rock and roll. He reportedly believed their obsession with darkness and occult imagery was just a cheap gimmick to sell records. An alleged studio encounter in the 1970s turned ugly when Keith supposedly mocked Ozzy Osbourne's stage presence. Insiders claimed Keith said Sabbath shows were theatrical nonsense rather than genuine rock performances. Keith allegedly preferred the Stones' blues-based swagger over Sabbath's heavy, sludgy riffs. He reportedly told friends that Black Sabbath made rock music scary for all the wrong reasons. The philosophical difference was clear. Keith wanted rock to make you dance and feel alive. Black Sabbath allegedly made music Keith thought was too heavy and too dark for his taste. The two camps reportedly never saw eye to eye on what rock should be. 6. The Sex Pistols. At number 6, we've got the Sex Pistols. And this feud was absolutely explosive. Keith Richards allegedly despised the punk movement, and the Pistols were his main target for criticism. Sources claim Keith called the Sex Pistols manufactured rebels.
Makes me uneasy. It's using somebody else's plight.
Who knew nothing about real rock and roll. He reportedly said they were just a marketing gimmick created by Malcolm McLaren to sell safety pins and torn t-shirts. Rumor has it that Keith and Johnny Rotten had a heated backstage confrontation at a London venue. Witnesses allegedly heard Keith telling Rotten that punk was destroying everything the Stones built in rock music. Keith supposedly believed the Pistols couldn't actually play their instruments properly. He allegedly mocked their 3-chord songs and said a real musician needed years of practice, not just attitude and spitting. The generational clash was brutal. Old guard versus new wave. Keith reportedly saw punk as disrespectful noise, while the Pistols called him a dinosaur past his prime. 5. Husker Du number 5 might surprise you. Husker Du, the American hardcore punk pioneers. Keith Richards allegedly had serious problems with the underground scene they represented in the 1980s. Sources claim Keith dismissed Husker Du as college kids playing dress-up rock.
Well, we've just finished mixing. Ours isn't ready. Okay, let's not clash. We'll put ours.
He reportedly couldn't understand why critics praised their loud, fast, and aggressive style of music. Keith allegedly said in interviews that bands like Husker Du were too angry and too fast without any musicality. He supposedly told journalists that real rock needed groove and soul, not just volume and speed. Industry insiders reported that Keith refused to listen to their albums when music critics recommended them. He allegedly threw a Husker Du vinyl across the room, calling it unlistenable garbage for angry teenagers. The tension represented a bigger divide: mainstream rock royalty versus underground authenticity. Keith reportedly saw the hardcore scene as pretentious kids rejecting everything great about rock and roll. Husker Du fans allegedly called Keith out of touch and irrelevant in response. 4. The Grateful Dead. At number 4, we have the Grateful Dead, and allegedly, Keith Richards couldn't stand their hippie jam band philosophy. This rivalry reportedly went deeper than most people realized. Sources claim Keith called the Dead's endless improvisations self-indulgent nonsense that bored audiences to death. He allegedly said their 20-minute guitar solos had no structure, no purpose, and no real talent behind them. Rumor has it that Keith walked out of a Grateful Dead concert after just 15 minutes. Witnesses claimed he told friends that real musicians know when to stop playing, and called their jam sessions musical masturbation. Keith reportedly had issues with their whole counterculture vibe too. Sources said he thought the Dead's druggy peace and love image was fake and commercialized. The irony? Keith himself was notorious for substance use. Industry insiders alleged that Keith and Jerry Garcia had a tense encounter at a festival. Keith supposedly told Garcia that the Stones' tight 3-minute songs had more power than any 30-minute Dead jam ever could. 3. LED Zeppelin. Number 3 is Led Zeppelin, and this feud was about blues credibility. Keith Richards allegedly believed Zeppelin stole the blues without giving proper respect to its roots. Sources claim Keith called Led Zeppelin blues thieves who took black artists' music and made millions without acknowledgement. He reportedly said Jimmy Page's playing was technically impressive but soulless compared to real blues guitarists. The rivalry allegedly intensified when both bands competed for the greatest rock band title throughout the 1970s. Keith supposedly told journalists that Zeppelin's heavy sound buried the blues feeling under distortion and volume. Rumor has it that Keith confronted Robert Plant at an industry party about their songwriting credits controversy. Insiders claimed Keith said Zeppelin borrowed too many blues riffs without crediting the original black musicians properly. Keith allegedly respected their success, but never their approach. Sources said he told friends that Zeppelin made the blues too white and too loud for his taste. The competition between Stones and Zeppelin fans became legendary, fueled by Keith's reported disdain. The philosophical difference was clear. Keith wanted rock to make you dance and feel alive. Black Sabbath allegedly made music Keith thought was too heavy and too dark for his taste. The two camps reportedly never saw eye to eye on what rock should be. 2. Pink Floyd. At number 2, we have Pink Floyd, and Keith Richards allegedly despised everything about their progressive, conceptual approach to music. This wasn't just dislike. Sources claim it was pure hatred. Keith reportedly called Pink Floyd pretentious art school dropouts who forgot that rock music should make people move and feel alive. He allegedly said their concept albums were boring bedtime stories with no real rock and roll energy. Rumor has it that Keith and Roger Waters had a legendary confrontation at a European music festival. Witnesses claimed Keith mocked the Wall album, calling it 2 hours of depressing whining that nobody actually enjoyed listening to. Sources said Keith believed Pink Floyd's light shows and theatrical productions were compensation for lack of genuine musical talent. He allegedly told interviewers that real rock didn't need lasers and flying pigs to be exciting. 1. The Police. And finally, number 1, The Police. Sources claim this was Keith Richards' most bitter and personal rivalry in rock history. The hatred allegedly ran incredibly deep between Keith and the band. Keith reportedly despised the Police's reggae-influenced pop sound, calling it watered-down fake Caribbean music for white people. He allegedly said Sting was too pretentious and acted like a poet instead of a real rocker. Rumor has it that Keith and Sting had multiple heated encounters at major awards shows throughout the 1980s. Witnesses claimed Keith once refused to present an award because the Police were nominated in the same category. Sources said Keith mocked Sting's lyrics constantly, calling them pseudo-intellectual garbage that tried too hard to sound deep and meaningful. He allegedly told friends that the Police represented everything wrong with 1980s rock. Industry insiders reported that Keith walked out of a party when the Police's Every Breath You Take started playing. He supposedly called it stalker music disguised as a love song. This feud allegedly never ended, making it Keith's #1 band of hatred of all time. So there you have it, Keith Richards' most legendary band feuds that shook rock history. Which rivalry shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more music drama.